Xbox has 1 billion, Microsoft has 34,000, and your SSD will be a little bit easier to read. Happy end of September, friends. It is the end of September. I don't know if there's a Techtober. I guess maybe 24H2 would be October, but September has been packed. There's been the Meta stuff this week. There's been Apple. There's been Microsoft. There's all sorts of stuff just happening in the world of Microsoft and beyond. Hopefully you all had a wonderful week. Let's waste no time and dive right in. So first things up on the tech news agenda here is that Google is using the courts to sue Microsoft. Well, and the EU, that is. So obviously Google has been on the receiving end of a lot of EU issues at the end of the day. So has Microsoft and everybody else, but this time Google is suing Microsoft, and it comes to their cloud licensing. Specifically, Microsoft licensing terms restrict European customers from moving their content and Microsoft workloads to competitors' clouds, despite there being no technical barrier to doing so or impose. And basically, Microsoft admits that it's doing a 400% price drop when it struck that deal in the EU with other cloud vendors. So here is Google saying, like, nope, we're not just going to let them just sign a deal with these people and not let us be included. And so Microsoft's going to have to deal with this now. And I suspect that Google is not going to be one who's just going to settle, because it's in their best interest to really make it difficult for Microsoft to grow its cloud business based on the backs of Windows and everything else. And so why would Google settle at the end of the day? So this will be something to keep an eye on. It is going to take a very, very long time for it to make its way through. I suspect that Microsoft and Google will try to come to some sort of agreement. But again, Google has the bankroll and the know-with-all to realize what an actual EU ruling would do, is what Microsoft scuttled before. And so, yeah, I don't think that they will settle. I might be eating my words on that. We'll see. But yeah, Google's using their courts in their favor. Other things happening here. Windows 11 24H2 was potentially thought to be released this current week with their week D release. If that makes any sense to you, congratulations. You are too far down the Microsoft rabbit hole like myself. But it didn't arrive. So then there's been headlines like it's been delayed. Well, it was never announced to be coming this week. It was speculated based on a blog post where it said it might be happening. But Windows 11 24H2 doesn't have an official release date yet, so it can't be like officially delayed. And so anyways, 24H2 likely arriving in October is the speculation. Likely on Patch Tuesday would make the most sense at the end of the day. According to the Notepad, Microsoft is said to be working on a brand new Copilot app, or an overhaul Copilot app. This should not surprise anybody. Copilot is all the things Microsoft is throwing everything it has against the wall to try to make something from Copilot stick. And yes, while they're like a partial owner of ChatGPT, they still want their own thing, because we never know when the cleave will come down and they separate from OpenAI. Although I'm not expecting that anything new. One of the features is expected to be the ability to read you the news like a news personality, and probably a tone that you like that you can choose from, which is pretty cool, I guess. But however, it reminds me of Cortana's read your email feature. So again, they're new and better features, but they're not really. It just feels like they looked at Cortana and said, these are the things Cortana tried to do but didn't do them well, and now we can do them better at the end of the day. Microsoft has also announced new efforts to improve its cybersecurity systems. In a post, I believe it was by Charlie Bell, about their Secure Future initiative. Here's what it breaks down to. It says, we've dedicated the equivalent of 34,000 full-time engineers to Secure Future initiative. Yeah, that sounds like a very Microsoft number, because I mean, genuinely curious, like, are there 34,000 people in the world who are considered cybersecurity engineers who could touch Windows and Microsoft stack like that? I don't know. Microsoft has, I thought their org count was like around 200,000. So, what is that? Not quite, 25%. So probably like 15% shooting back of the math, back of the brain numbers. That's probably even off, because 200,000, 10% would be 20. Half of that would be 15. So that would put you up to 30. Yeah, so like 17%, something like that, maybe somewhere around there. We'll go with that. We will go with that. Anyways, so Microsoft is being more secure. It's all back to the front of the lobe again. And here we are. Something else that is genuinely, I think, pretty cool coming to Windows 11 here in the near future, using the Task Manager in Windows 11, you'll actually be able to see what kind of speed your SSD has. Now, this isn't some sort of cryptic information you could never find before, but it was always somewhere else. And now that it's in the Task Manager, it'll help people who have aging SSDs like myself. Actually, it just makes it easier to understand if upgrading would actually, truly improve your speed of your device. Obviously, if you're coming from a spinning rust drive, it'll make a huge improvement, but there are some definite speed differences between the different generations of SSDs. Again, make sure your M.2 slot supports the latest generation before you go buy something and waste your money. But yeah, that's coming to the Task Manager, which I think honestly is a good thing. So, this week there was a Tokyo Game Show. So let's jump into the gaming news by not talking about the Tokyo Game Show, but however, the Xbox app starting in November, although insiders can take a look at it, I believe starting actually today, they are combining the Game Pass and the Xbox app. This feels like it was long overdue. One Xbox app to rule them all. And again, this is coming to everybody in November and brings it all in-house into one single application. I understand why they had a game. I get why they had separate stuff. But when it comes to engagement, just get people into one app. You're just going to shove it all in there. And that's just the way that it's probably going to be at the end of the day. So there you go. Anyways, look for that coming down the line. So there were a lot of titles announced at the Xbox Game Show in Japan, and obviously they were all targeted at the Japanese audience. However, there's a lot of Final Fantasy titles that will be coming over to the Game Pass. Actually, I should say 9 Square Enix classic RPGs are going to head to Xbox, including Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and a couple of other titles. So there you go. Notable quote from Phil Spencer. He said, "This year, more people are playing Xbox across all devices in Asia than ever before. We've seen the largest number of Xbox console players in the region to date." And so that's some nebulous, non-committal numbers that just say Xbox is doing better than it had, but we don't know how good. And again, if it was anything meaningful, it's still probably a small fractional percent. Not even a fraction. It's a small percentage compared to probably what PlayStation and Nintendo do in their home turf, which has always been a struggling market for Microsoft at the end of the day. Now, one of the biggest things that, not that the Xbox Game Show in Japan wasn't big, that to me was the biggest thing was actually from an interview by Bloomberg with Sarah Bond earlier this week, where it came out that Xbox spends $1 billion annually to get games into Game Pass. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, it's maybe not such a big deal if you are Xbox. I don't know, maybe that's not the way to describe it. But Microsoft, effectively, what Microsoft just said here is we invest $1 billion externally into other game companies to bring their titles to Game Pass. What that means is, like, if I would be willing to bet that there is a non-zero number of indie game shops that still exist today because of this $1 billion in funding. That is what I really mean here, is that this $1 billion is a huge revenue opportunity for game developers to try to allure from Microsoft. And so Microsoft is subsidizing, if you will, an entire studio and generations of games potentially through this funding. Yes, some of this money is going to bigger titles and bigger studios who don't necessarily need the money, but hey, they're gonna take it to put their titles on the Game Pass. But it's every time you see a title showing up in Game Pass that's not from Xbox, there is some sort of transaction taking place. At the very least, it's free exposure. Like if somebody has a really old title and they're like, look, we'll put it in Game Pass if you guys will give us a blog post. That is the most basic, to Microsoft walking into an indie game shop and be like, hey, we'll give you $10 million if you bring this title to Game Pass. And then that indie dev shop, that is a massive opportunity for them. And so I think this is just a notable number that while you may not always love what Xbox is doing, you may not always love Game Pass, you may not always love Xbox in itself, this $1 billion is a recognizable lifeline for many, and I mean many studios. We've all seen how difficult times are in the industry lately. There's layoffs every time you open the newspaper or scroll the Twitters or whatever. I guess most people don't open newspapers anymore. However, this funding is a very big deal for the community, and so it's just something worth calling out at the end of the day. Other things happening in the world of Xbox, they announced a bunch of new Cypher controllers, including these that, if you're on the video side, you can now see on the display. They are it's the translucent plastic we all remember from the late 90s. And so now you can do it on an Xbox controller. The Elite Series 2 can be built in the, the design lab with various colors and elements and other things. And it does add, I believe, $10 to your order at the end of the day. However, if you want to customize these things, have at it. They look pretty darn good. This is the one from July, but the Cypher stuff looks pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. I'm tempted, but it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm tempted. So, we got quite a few. Well, not quite a few. We got a handful. We'll go handful. Quite a few is usually over 5 in my brain. So we're about to get 5. We're at 5 questions. So 5 questions into the hopper this week. First one comes from Jake23. He says, Brad, Xbox went to Japan and they had a game show. Do you think this was a net positive or a net negative for Xbox in Japan, who has historically struggled so much? I think it is definitely a net positive. Anytime they are in Japan, they're at least trying, right? Remember, Microsoft has just been slaughtered in that market. And so by them going over there and saying, look, these titles targeted at this demographic are coming to Game Pass. It's hard to see. I mean, they could definitely have flubbed it where if they went there and announced basically nothing. I don't think Sony went. I could be wrong on that. But I mean, they announced their 30th anniversary stuff this week, but I don't know if they were at the show or not. I cannot remember. Either way, I think Xbox did just fine at the end of the day. Second question comes from, I can't pronounce this Twitter handle. We'll just say Turtle39. We'll go with that. It says, hey, Brad, what is going on with Microsoft Teams? It seems like they used to have a consumer version and now they don't. So what they have done is much like the Xbox app, they are making one Teams app to rule them all. And the home consumer initiative has basically flatlined. I mean, they might be still adding some small things in there, but those are probably just freebies being carried over from the proper app. I don't see the Teams consumer version, it launched with Windows 11, going anywhere meaningful at the end of the day. Hey, Brad, this comes from Tristan. T-Riston, I think is how you pronounce it. Where is the Microsoft Surface event that always happens in the fall? I don't know if we are getting one. We should know soon if there is one, but I haven't heard anything as of recent. Not that I know everything about all Surface stuff. However, I haven't heard anything Surface related yet. Which doesn't mean it's not happening, but I just haven't heard any events yet because they really went all in on ARM. Although the new Lunar Lake stuff from Intel does look to be pretty good and actually a much better... I say this with the qualifier of it looks much better head-to-head ARM this time around from a power perspective. Like power, I don't mean horsepower, I mean actual power draw perspective. I think it seems like they just clock things down a lot because every review in third-party hands so far has said, hey, it does much better on battery life, but it's not as high performant. But I think that's a very good trade-off at this point in the industry. I mean, these things get so powerful these days. Unless you're running AI workloads or those sorts of things, like you're probably better off with more battery life than more horsepower, I think is the reality. And so we'll see if Microsoft does any revs with Lunar Lake, but they're not usually too quick to hop on things, especially because Intel has had a couple of things go wrong with their last couple chips. They actually just issued some microcode updates, I think for 13th gen. I might be wrong in the gen. Was there 12th gen? I cannot remember. But either way, that would be your best bet of seeing a revision in the Surface family here in the near future would be my guess. Chris says, hey, Brad, how's the Xbox working out since you have replaced it? I think somebody may have asked that last week. All good. We will talk about it again. So this is actually the power supply from the old one. And so far, so good. Yeah, we found this bad boy on Amazon. It's really not hard to do. You just need, T8 screwdriver. And don't get like one of those flimsy things that like spins on the top. Like you need a proper T8 screwdriver. I think it's T8. And because like some of these things are torqued pretty hard, and actually rounded one, trying to use a stupid, cheap little flimsy thing. So yeah, do that. Mr. PKI says, with double dose of questions to end the week, he says, any new announcements or games coming to Xbox based on the Tokyo event? There were a few, right? There was a Square Enix titles. Wasn't there a Metal Gear Solid is going to be coming to Xbox? And there's some other third-party titles which names slip my mind, but there definitely are some coming. But I think that the question is, are there any titles coming that entice Brad Sams to go download them? Not yet. I mean, I'm still waiting for like Indiana Jones and Avowed and still those first party titles that are most likely to get my interest here. Let's see. Second question from Mr. PKI. He says, how an insider question of the week is whether an Xbox Series X successor is coming earlier than everyone thinks, as we've been hearing some rumors. I don't know. Like, here's like the thing I struggle with. The generations I think are all just melted together at this point. Like, I kind of sort of think these generations are just gone. There will definitely be another series, whatever, and it'll be more horsepower and it'll be whatever. But they're still going to be making games for the Series S and X, I think, for a very long time. Given how hard it has been to get rid of the PS4 and the Xbox One out of like the ecosystem, I think that, yeah, let's pretend it came in 2 years, which is a couple of years ahead of schedule. Probably about 2 years ahead of schedule if it came in 2 years. I think something like that. I think it's just going to be the same games, and they'll just be more upscaled, more like the PS5 Pro rather than like a whole new thing. And I think we might start seeing more iterative releases rather than these big chunky boy releases that we have in the past, because the industry has just changed so very much. It used to be a title came out on a physical cartridge, and it could only fit into the slot of one console, and you could not take it out and go into another console and push it in there. But now games are all digital, right? They're just downloadable assets, and so you don't have that physical connection. So you really lose, ever since the whole industry has gone digital, you really lose the meaning of what is a console. Yes, developers have to target a specific thing, but Microsoft's not dumb. Sony's not dumb. When they build the next generation, they're going to make it very similar in approach to what they do for the current generation, so it's easier to bring those back catalog games to the new system, and then they get that free backwards compatibility. So I don't know when the next successor is going to arrive. I suspect that it's going to be more of like a melting pot into the next generation, more so than what we have seen today. So, all right. Well, that wraps it up, guys. Nice, easy, simple week here. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. Hopefully everybody stayed safe, by the way. There was a huge hurricane that just hit Florida. It's actually about to hit my house. Even though I'm up in Cincinnati, we're expecting like 60 to 70 mile an hour winds today. This thing is just ripping right on through. So hopefully everybody stayed safe and had a wonderful week. And we'll catch all of you right back here next time.